Texas is favored by 3.5 points versus Georgia. The over-under for this game is 56. Let's jump into the Georgia Bulldogs stats here. 30.6 points per game on offense. That is 40th in the country. 6.5 yards per play on offense. That is 21st. 4.3 yards per rush, which is 65th, which is crazy to see Georgia at this late in the season. Yards per pass is 8.6, which is 24th in the country, and the offensive line is still very good. 3.16% sack rate, 25th in the country. On the defensive side of the ball, they allow 20 points per game, 22nd in the country. 5.5 yards per play, which is 67th in the country. 3.9 yards per rush, which is 41st in the country, and 7.4 yards per pass, which is 74th in the country. Sack percentage is 4.94%. That is 86th in the country. Now let's move on to the Texas Longhorns. 43.2 points per game. That is 5th in the country. 7.1 yards per play on offense, which is 10th in the country. 5.1 yards per rush, which is 25th in the country. 9.6 yards per pass, which is 8th in the country. QB sack percentage is 3.03%. That is 24th in the country. Now let's move over to the defense. 6.3 points per game, first in the country. 3.5 yards per play, which is first in the country. 3 yards per rush, which is 10th in the country. 4.6 yards per pass, which is first in the country. And 9.34% sack rate, which is 13th in the country. And I did want to hit on one thing because I brought this up as a big point of emphasis in my preview for the Texas game over on the Texas channel. Georgia's only rushing the ball on 43.95% of their snaps, and they're passing on 56.05% on their snaps. I'm going to talk about that a lot, but Tyler, I'll let you hit this first.
Yeah, and that's Georgia's game plan for you. I know I'm not – listen, I prefer Georgia to run the football a little bit more, but they actually have kind of been struggling. And this dates back to even last year with Georgia's rush game. It just hasn't really been that effective in some of these bigger games. Now, let's touch upon Georgia's defense real quick. Georgia's defense isn't elite. It's not up to Kirby Smart's standards, but it's still a good defense if we're being honest here. I know people say, oh, get upset because Georgia gave up 31 points to Mississippi State, which is inexcusable. But for the season, Georgia's given up, 17.17 points per game. Gave up 3 points against Clemson, who looks like they have an elite offense. Again, play calling with Dabo Swinney in that game was head-scratching. Didn't make sense to me, but Georgia's defense, in exception for 2 games, has been good, but not up to Kirby Smart's standards. And, us Georgia fans, we're spoiled with how well our team has been, especially defensively, top 5 almost every single season under Kirby Smart since 2017. But some issues, and the first issue is I'm not too much of a fan of Glenn Schumann's defensive scheme. We've missed tackles. That's inexcusable for Georgia football as well. But we've missed so much on the edge, and we've given up so many gaps in the rush game on the outside, which doesn't make too much sense because Georgia is elite at stopping the run, or used to be elite at stopping the run. And you can start and point at your defensive line. Well, our defensive line, I will say, is getting better. It was kind of an interesting issue, as I was kind of worried about our interior defensive line. Nasir Stackhouse, he's been okay, I guess, but I really wanted to see more from Jordan Hall, who is a sophomore 5-star recruit. I think he is the most talented and has the most potential on the interior defensive line for the Georgia Bulldogs. He was a 5-star for a reason. Get him out there. We have yet to see him, but Warren Brinson has been stepping up, I will say. On the outside, Tyron Ingram-Dawkins has probably been Georgia's best sacker. And I believe he has 4 on the year. That's not great. Georgia doesn't get to the quarterback very much. They're going to have to get to the quarterback against Quinn Ewers if they want to win this game. And Georgia's secondary has just been a joke. It is not good at all, especially over the past 3 weeks. We let Peyton Throne look like prime time. I don't know. I mean, he had one of his best games against us. That was pretty pathetic, in my opinion. And with our cornerbacks specifically, they've been a giant letdown. And this was supposed to be an elite, talented Georgia cornerback room. And Daniel Harris has been a giant letdown. Everett has been okay. They had some blown coverages against Mississippi State, but he's been okay. Humphreys hasn't been good. I kind of want to see more from Ellis Robinson. He was a 5-star recruit for a reason as well. He is a true freshman, but he has the most raw potential in that cornerback room. Dan Jackson and Malachi Starks are both pretty good as well. Dan Jackson has been stepping up, and Malachi Starks has the elite talent. He's missed some tackles as well against Alabama, but I'm pretty sure he's cleaned that up. Georgia and Texas are both going to score upon each other. I know Texas's defense is top 5 defensively, I think, in scoring and in, I believe, you're top 5 in rushing yards allowed too. Both these teams are going to score. I was looking through the chat and it said 27-13, 27-10. I think both these teams are going to score in the 30s. And I think it's going to be similar to that Alabama game in which both these teams, I think Texas is going to jump out on Georgia by a couple scores early on, but Georgia's going to have to fight back, and it's going to be a pretty good back and forth game. You touch upon Dylan Bell. I guess he's been stepping up, but really, who is that premier first option for Carson Beck? We really don't have one. That's just the honest opinion. Arian Smith has too many drops. Arian Smith has 430 yards on the season. This guy could have 700 yards on the year if he caught every pass, or every pass that's hit him in the hands like this in the breadbasket. This Arian Smith has had so many drops this season. He might lead the SEC in drops. Look, Georgia's going to have to play. Carson Beck's going to have to not turn the ball over. He's had some issues over the past few weeks with interceptions, which has been crazy. Carson Beck's not a turnover machine, or hasn't really been that since he was a freshman. But in the end, it's hard for me to pick Georgia here. This is a Texas primetime game. They've looked like the best team in college football. Texas has their best, I think, DB out, Derek Williams, or he's one of your better DBs. I get that. But yeah, for me, it's hard for me to pick my team here because I saw this Georgia defense against Alabama got tore up. What do I think Quinn? What do I really think Quinn's going to do? I think he's going to sit back in the pocket all day, all night, and pick apart Georgia's defense. I hope I'm wrong, but Georgia's pressures and sacks just hasn't been there this year. 11 total sacks in 6 games. Are we serious? That's absolutely horrible. I'm sorry. That's just pretty bad. You're going to have to force Quinn Ewers to turn the ball over. The good thing is he's not a skilled runner, which is the difference between him and Jalen Milroe, but he's got a way better arm talent. I like Texas in this game, to be honest with you. I'm going to take Texas at home 38-31 over my Georgia Bulldogs. So I would actually take Texas in the points there.
Okay. Yeah, I just looking at that, I think Georgia's kind of gotten away from their identity, and I agree with you. They're not as good up front to where they can just pound it down your throat. But I will say, I still think the weakness of this Texas team is up the middle at their defensive tackles. The problem is, I don't really see anyone on the schedule that has the offensive line nor the running back to exploit that. I honestly don't see anyone really in college football because Ohio State has a really good running backs, but they don't have the offensive line to line up and just pound you, and they don't want to do that anyways. So Georgia, if I'm Georgia, that is why I would try to do that. I don't think they're going to. That would be a complete 180 from what they've been doing this year. I don't see Mike Bobo doing that. And yeah, Derek Williams is out, but that's the thing. Last year, that would have been a huge deal. This year, it's not that big of a deal because guess what? You could bring in Andrew Makuba and he can play in that spot as well. And no one talks about this. Like Jahdae Barron at the cornerback position is the highest rated cornerback according to Pro Football Focus. He's put himself into first round categories in most mock drafts, which I'm shocked going into the season that he's there. I thought he'd be like a second or third round pick, but he's been phenomenal. Malik Muhammad on the other side hasn't allowed over 100 yards total on the year as well. So this secondary is revamped from last year where you had Brian Watts, who's right now is a safety in the NFL. And then you have Jahdae Barron sliding out from his nickel position to play cornerback, where you had Terrence Brooks, who's playing for Illinois. And guess what? When he goes to the NFL, he's going to be a safety too. So we had 2 safeties on the outside at cornerback. Now we have 2 legitimate guys that will be top 50 picks when they decide to go to the NFL. And then off the edge, I mean, we just saw what Anthony Hill did versus Oklahoma with 2 sacks, 11 tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss. He was all over the place with Colin Simmons in there as well, playing very well for a freshman. I think he has 4 sacks as a freshman. He has a chance to tie or break the Texas record of, I believe it's 9. So he's got a chance for that. This defense is good. This game will prove to me how good they are. Do I think Georgia's elite offensively? No, but they're definitely good offensively for sure. And Carson Beck's going to have his chances downfield to make plays. And will Texas be able to stop him? We will see. I need Quinn Ewers to not be rusty because he was clearly rusty versus Oklahoma. That throw over the middle where he overthrew Matthew Golden, Quinn Ewers never overthrows people down the middle of the field. Never. He has not done it all the way back since his freshman year. He's been elite down the middle of the field, and that was one of his only overthrows I've ever seen him make. So if that continues to go in that way, that is concern for me. Also, his footwork was back to last year. It was atrocious in the pocket versus Oklahoma. I'm hoping, again, that was a rust thing. Hadn't been playing in a month, and I think anyone's shocked that he kind of played bad to start off that game. You don't know what you're talking about, honestly, because it's a month. If you're off of a football field playing actual game for a month, you're going to be rusty. That'd be like a guy who's a great three-point shooter in the NBA, off for a month, comes back in and has a rusty night. That's probably going to happen. You got to get back into rhythm. Brooks Austin, who does a really good job breaking down film on YouTube here. I watched his breakdown today of the Texas and Georgia game, and he talks about how the eye discipline of the Georgia linebackers may be an issue in this game because they've been undisciplined. They get caught in the backfield, and then guys run behind them. And Smile Munden is out for this game, is he not, Tyler?
Yeah, it seems like he's doubtful.
Yeah, so that would be really big if he misses this game, honestly, because he's probably, I would say he's your second best player at this point on your defense. I could be wrong about that. Do you agree with that or no?
I'm a big fan of C.J. Allen. Well, he's our middle linebacker on the outside. We've had Raymond Wilson having to step up, so I'd much rather have Smile Munden. But I would say, yeah, he's one of our 3 or 4 best defensive players. Our most important, though, is going to be Mykel Williams on the edge.
Yeah, they're gonna have to get pressure, and listen, I'm going to say something, and I don't care if anyone thinks it's a hot take. I think this is the best offensive line in college football in a very long time that Texas has. I really believe that. All 5 of these guys are going to be top 150 picks in the NFL draft. That is rare to have that many guys on the offensive line to do that, and both of our tackles are going to be first-round picks. Kelvin Banks will be a top 5 pick in the NFL draft if he doesn't get hurt. Georgia is going to have to manufacture pressure. They are going to have to scheme up pressure. I don't see them being able to line up mano-a-mano and beat this Texas offensive line. I would be shocked if that happened. I think if Quinn Ewers just gets a little bit better from Oklahoma, doesn't make the turnover that he did earlier in the game, and Texas does what I think they're capable of doing, I think Texas wins this game 34-24. That's what I'm going to have it. I think it is a ball game for most of the game, but I think Texas does pull away late because I think they have slightly better depth than Georgia, which is crazy that I'm even saying that because I did not think going into this year I'd be able to say that, but I do think Texas covers the spread. I think they win 34-24. I think it's a good game for most of the game. I think Texas pulls away late, and I guess I would be taking the over on that as well.
Yeah, I love the over here. This is, for me, the over-under is just kind of giving Texas a lot more credit than they would UGA and Georgia's defense. But Georgia's defense has just been a letdown this season for Georgia's standards. Now, giving up 31 points to Mississippi State's embarrassing. I will. Don't get me wrong. A lot of that came from miscommunications. I'm hoping that can get fixed up. And that really should in a short period of time. But that's stuff you can't have against Texas. I just think Texas is the better team here. Georgia has a lot more injuries as well, but I don't know if that really matters. Now, it would be a lot better having a 1-2 punch at running back with Trevor Etienne and Roderick Robinson, who we really have never seen. He's a 6'1" power back with elusive speed. This guy's a lot of talent. I've never heard this in my life, and I hope someone can correct me if I'm wrong. I have never heard of a player being out for the season with turf toe. And I get it. He had surgery as well. But I thought it was only supposed to be a week-to-week thing. Okay, it's literally week 8, and he's not going to come back anytime soon, which sucks because I love Roderick Robinson, and he was a huge get for UGA. He's a big power back, and as well as he has speed. But yeah, and then obviously without Tate and Ratledge as well.
Yeah,
huge loss. Georgia's best offensive lineman. So, and then Smile Munden out, and some other players on the defensive line could be out. It's just Georgia's always banged up, but this is who Georgia is. It's always the next man up mentality. I still think it's going to be a pretty good game, but I'm just worried that Georgia does what they did against Alabama, really, and gets down by too much. You can't go down 28-0 to Texas, or this game will be completely over. Georgia will not make a comeback. If Georgia goes down 28-0 to Texas, the final is going to be 45-21 or 42-28. The game will just be pretty much over. But again, this is going to be a real fun game, a fun matchup. I just hope Georgia's defense is able to step it up, because I'm fairly confident Georgia's going to score in the 30s on Texas. I think both teams are going to score 30s. But like you said, if Quinn Ewers can shake off the rust, which I've seen Quinn Ewers in these big game and big moments, he always steps up. I mean, I can't even remember a time in which he hasn't. Maybe back in 2022. But again, he was injured actually for most of that season, right?
Yeah, he had a broken thumb.
Yeah. So, and that came against Alabama. Early in that Alabama game, he showed the flashes. So big game Quinn always shows up. Can Georgia match the blow for blow? And I actually am going to say no. That's why I'm taking Texas. I know I'm a Georgia fan, and other Georgia fans will get upset for me for saying that. But I'm being dead serious, unbiased here. I think Texas will win this game.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting, because this is definitely the most explosive athletes we faced on the outside of wide receiver. Like, do I think they're 2019 LSU? Obviously not, but they're worlds better than Oklahoma and Michigan on the outside. So it's going to be, I think it may take a drive for Texas just to get used to that speed and athleticism on the outside, but I think they'll be fine after that. I mean, they see it every day at practice. I'm hoping Isaiah Vaughn will give it a go. I think he will. Everything that I've heard says it's like a grade 1 ankle sprain, which if anyone's ever had that, it feels bad for a couple days, but after that, you should be able to go if you tape it up. So he'll play. Gunnar Helm is someone that I think is going to have a pretty big game versus Georgia. We'll see if CJ Allen gets that assignment or who does get that assignment, but he can definitely have a big game. Maybe we'll see Malachi Starks one-on-one with him at certain points in the game, but it's going to be a fun game. I think Austin is the place to be this week. And I mean, you have F1, you have the Eminem concert, you have the Sting concert, you have this game. Texas is going to have 70 plus 4- and 5-star recruits from 2025 to 2028 in attendance for this game. So this is a hell of a game. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and this is a game you don't want to lose either side, because this game right here, pretty much, I think, especially for Texas, if Texas win this game, they are 1,000% a lock. But I think the winner of this game is 100% or at least 85% locked in. They put themselves in a good situation. And really for Georgia, we really can't lose this game, because we've already lost to Alabama. I get it was a road game, but we kind of got destroyed in that game. And I know a lot of people were saying, well, it was a fluke, but I don't think it was a fluke. Alabama just owns Georgia. That's just the bottom line. I don't know what it is with Georgia and Alabama, but for Georgia, you really can't afford to lose this game, because you still have at Ole Miss and Tennessee back-to-back. So Georgia, this better be an all-in situation for Kirby Smart. I'm excited for what him and Mike Bobo are going to come up with on the offensive end, and then hopefully Glenn Schumann can prove me wrong and run some scheme something up to slow down Texas. I don't think either team is shutting either one of us out. But I'm hoping Georgia is able to run the ball and tries to run the ball. And Georgia starts out hot. That's pretty much for me. That's the only way Georgia can win this game, is if they get up early. If they could go up 14-0 at the end of the first quarter or into the second half, really taking a lead at halftime, let's say, I don't know, 21-10, 24-13, or heck, even 21-13, you get the ball in the second half, go down and score a touchdown, then I'd start to feel good as a Georgia fan. But I'm just worried that the same old Georgia would come out flat in the first quarter and into the second quarter. And, oh, by the way, you're down 21-3 with the ball. You need to go down, get a TD. Oh, nope, you're going to get a field goal, down 21-6 at half. That's what I'm kind of worried about for UGA, but I still think it's going to be a good game.
Yeah, I agree. Georgia has gotten off to slow starts basically every game they've played. Texas has been like in the middle on that. They've had some really fast starts, some slow starts, but I think they have the best points differential in the first quarter of any team this season. So if that happens in this game, you're right. Like it could get ugly. Like our defense. Listen, it hasn't been tested. I'm going to tell you right now, it's way better than Alabama's in the back end. So they're not going to be able to throw for all those yards like they did in the second half. If it does get if this game isn't close early on. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to be pretty close all the way through until the end of the game.
Yeah, and it should be. But like I said, man, may the best one win here in this one. Me being a Georgia fan, you obviously a Texas fan. This is a good one to have. At least now 8 weeks into the season, both our teams halfway through. Well, we both played 6 games, but comes in as a top 5 matchup. This is everything that we thought it would be. So.
Yeah, for sure. And it's just nice, honestly, with the 12th team. Like, I can sit down and enjoy this game. I'm still going to be pumped as hell. But if we lose, like, we can still make the playoff. It's still all out in there for us. There's no concern. Like, even Georgia, they lose this game, still probably going to make the playoff. But it's going to be a fun game, and I'm excited.